Welcome to a milestone episode of Markets, Malts, and Machines. Yes, this is our 10th episode, and welcome. In today's episode, we'll be covering three things. One is, what do you do if you're looking to hold cash or dry powder in case you expect the market to come down, but you're also worried about inflation? We'll talk about that. Second, we're going to resume our tour of Scotland, and we'll be looking at the Islay region. And last but certainly not the least, we will be looking at a live demonstration of an ES hybrid luxury car, and we'll be playing a game. Guess the price. Let's get started. The froth is too high. There's too much euphoria in the market. The guy who polishes the shoes tells me about stock tips. Whoa, a lot of things happening. Does that mean that the market is supposed to come down? Potentially a correction, worse, a sell-off? Well, we never know. But there are a few choices available to you at this point in time. One is you do nothing and you risk a downward shift and thereby lose maybe 6-8% in a correction, or worse, 20 to 30% in a crash. Secondly, you may buy protection in the form of puts, but then you're sinking your hard-earned cash into premiums for those puts, which may never materialize. Third, you may sell long out of the money calls, but that's a discussion for another episode coming soon. And last, you may hold cash 10, 15, 20% in your portfolio, but you must be worried with all the fiscal and monetary stimulus. Is that cash going to hold its purchasing power, or is it going to lose it? Because if it does, then you haven't really protected yourself. So what do? Well, there are a couple of things to think about in this scenario, in this instance, and we'll talk about that. Let's talk about the first one. The examples that come to mind are Switzerland, Sweden, and Norway. Mainly because, A, they're stable first world or developed world countries, but also, relatively speaking, their debt as a percent of GDP is much lower than the United States. The United States and or the UK or some of the other Eurozone members, their debt to GDP is much higher. So United States is about 107%, and the UK is about 86%. Now compare and contrast that with the debt to GDP for Switzerland at 39%, and for Sweden and Norway at 37%. So one of the things you can look at is a potentially moving your assets from US dollars into Swiss francs or the Swedish or the Norwegian Krona. They have been pretty steady prior to 2020, and they've been appreciating over the past few months as the Dixie of the dollar's strength has gotten lower and lower. Now, there's always a question, right? Foreign exchange is always relative, is always compared to something else. You can expect that the US and the euro relative strength may be at par, may stay at par, but compared to the other countries that have less debt, it's going to depreciate. So this is a good place, in my opinion, to move cash into a different currency, but at the same time not feel the effects of inflation, given what we've seen thus far. So that's on one hand. On the other, when you start thinking about a set of countries that are expected to grow much faster, obviously emerging markets come to mind, and specifically China and India. Now, when you think about China, China's debt to GDP percentage is much lower than that of the United States. It's at about 54%. And India's debt to GDP percentage is about 69%. Both of them much lower than the United States, but at the same time, they're expected to grow much higher in 2021 and potentially 2022. So part of the thing is, if you're looking to hedge against the potential down move in SPY or the United States stock markets, this is one place to park your short-term cash-related or liquid-related needs. You can always sell that when the market comes down and invest it back into the United States shares and stocks. So that's something other to think about. Now, where would you invest? We've talked a bit about CXSE, which is an ETF, China X state-owned ETF. So that's one. But the other one, from India perspective, another ETF is INDA. It's done pretty well year to date, but it's got a 0.7, 0.8% expense ratio, so it's not necessarily cheap, but something for you to consider in the short term, let's say in the next 2 to 3 months, where there's an expectation that there's going to be a somewhat of a correction in the United States stock market. So that, in a nutshell, are a couple of options you have. The third option is really investing into asset classes that are absolutely not correlated with the stock market at all. Art comes to mind, but that is not as liquid as the first two that we just talked about, and that will be a discussion session for one of our upcoming episodes soon enough. So that's our market segment for today. Let's move on to our malt segment. So if you remember, these are the Scotch regions that we covered a few weeks ago. We've already talked a bit about the Highlands and the Speyside. So today we'll talk a bit about the Islay. Okay, so Islay, if I can blow that graph up a little bit, as you can see, it's a pretty small region here. Has about no more than 10 distilleries. Some of the ones that you may be familiar with are Lagavulin, Laphroig, and Ardbeg. The one that got me hooked onto Scotch is the Bruichladdich. And that's the one we've covered in one of our first episodes, the classic Laddie. It is an Islay. And as you can see, it may look like it's Islay, but it's pronounced as Islay. And those Marathi speaking ones will be easy for you to come by because Islay. Moving on. And so look, as I said, smallest whiskey region with less than 10 distilleries. This is definitely known for its peaty malts, right? I mean, you can see the typical Islay flavors: seaweed, brine, soap. Not something that you'd associate with being delicious necessarily, but the apple, smoke, and kippers starts to get into the complexity that's offered, and certainly the peaty nature of it, right? It's believed that part of the reason why you see the peatiness is that the whiskey distillation went from Ireland to Scotland via the Islay, and lacking the means to heat natural heat such as coal, etc. Lacking that, families and people used to use peat to heat up, and peated whiskey gets the smoky flavor by the compounds that are released by the peat fires. Essentially, when you have malted barley, you need to dry it, and to dry the malted barley, they use peat fires. And the way peat is formed, right, is by the accumulation of water in those boggy areas that slows down the decomposition of plants, right, such as grass or tree roots or moss. But it's that material that's used to heat up and cause the peat fires to dry the malted barley that gives it the smoky flavors. So something to think about. That's the short version of it for now. We'll cover the longer version of peated scotches in upcoming episodes. But you can certainly find Bruichladdich, Ardbeg, Lagavulin. I don't think I've seen the Laphroig at Total Wine. Perhaps it's there, but a whole host of these in Total Wine. It's really a candy store when it comes to this. So Islay, recapping, this is really a region known for its smoky, peated scotches. Has a altogether different flavor to it compared to, let's say, the Highlands or the Speyside. Tend to be more complex or spicy on that front. However, Islay tends to be a bit more on the smoky side, and as you can see, seaweed brine and carbolic soap. If it interests you, if it's piqued your interest, go ahead and try it. Let us know what you think, and we'll be happy to comment and provide any more feedback. With that, we will switch over now to our machine segment, that will cover a real life view and a review of a latest used car purchase, the Lexus ES Hybrid 300. Welcome to the machine section, and this is the ES Hybrid 2018 car that I'd like to walk you through. And looking around, you go around the car, looks like it's brand new, and it certainly feels like it too. Let's take a look at it from the inside. Pretty roomy. Obviously it's beautiful Southern California sun, so it feels great. A lot of light from the moonroof, and also the dash and everything that's very leather and sporty. Overall, a very luxurious feel to it. Now let's see what it feels like behind the wheel. Sitting in, you are immediately greeted by the luxury in the car, surrounded by leather everywhere, beautiful wood trim, and this beautiful steering wheel. It's got a nice wooden steering wheel that's pretty shiny here in the sun. 72-degree weather outside thanks to Southern California, and more leather on the steering wheel, right? So immediately you're greeted by the luxury, and the seat feels very comfortable, what you'd expect from an ES. So let's talk about some numbers. This is a $42,000 base car, and it's got about $6,000 in options, taking it to $48,000 in total when this car came out in 2018. Notable options, 4 of them I would like to point out. One being the direct LED headlights. Second is park assist. Third, you got the navigation. So those are the top 3 that really come to mind. So it's really a beautiful car, and the best part is it's been out there for since 2018, but this looks, smells, and drives as if it's new. And that's really the best part about buying a used car, not paying the premium, but getting everything that you would get from a new car anyway. So let's go on a drive and let's see how it feels while driving the car. It's a nice smooth ride, of course aided by the hybrid motor and pushing on the power too. Of course, this is not the sportiest cars on the block. You don't buy this car for sports, you buy this for smooth handling and luxury, which I can say that is definitely providing every second here. And as you can see, the shocks are well absorbed, part of the standard package for the car, with air suspension that's offered with this, and overall a very smooth and luxurious ride as you'd expect from an ES. Okay, so 2.5 years, 26,000 miles on this car. That's the question for the audience. How much do you think this car would have sold for in the last month? Summary again, almost $48,000 sale price in 2018, and about 26,000 miles gone. And this is a hybrid. Someone is racing, obviously. This is a hybrid ES Lexus luxury car. So I would like for you guys to think about it. Please respond with your thoughts in the comment section as to how much you think you would have paid to buy this car in the first month of 2021. Let us know. Some details on the car here, on the standard and the options for you to make your decision. That's our show for this week. Talk to you soon.